Just last week, he said on Sundays that he is a racer and not a team owner. We have a 100% rule in NASCAR. You're supposedly 100% effort all the time. And now Hamlin is saying that had he known, he wouldn't have not passed Chastain.
I mean, he's 100% right. Hear me out. It's silly to admit guilt there, I guess, in the sense. But if you're Denny Hamlin, I think if you're anyone, why would you want Joey Logano still in the playoffs when you can have Ross Chastain? And that's no offense to Ross Chastain, but he's only made it past the round of 12 once, and when he went on that almost championship run where he ended up losing to Logano. But Logano, for some reason, just clicks in the playoffs. It doesn't matter where he was in the regular season standings or where he somehow got a fuel mileage win here or there. When it comes to the playoffs, Logano just figures it out. So, yeah, I think Denny Hamlin, he was honest at least, and maybe a little too honest by saying, yeah, I probably wouldn't have run Chastain that hard if I knew, which, yeah, it makes sense, but you shouldn't admit it. But it is kind of silly after last week, racing over 100% and taking out his own driver who could have inevitably made it to the next round. Now both his cars, both Bubba Wallace and Tyler Reddick, are eliminated from the playoffs in the same race that his other car, who people forget about, gets disqualified. We'll touch on that a little bit. I don't know what happened to Riley Herbst, but for him to be my 36 of 36 in fantasy and to get disqualified, I think he went from scoring 5 points to 1 or 0, would be 1. So he didn't really do much, but yeah, it is crazy. And yeah, it kind of shows, it's a weird thing. I don't know if Bubba Wallace would be like, oh, well, he's going to race hard. He won't race hard against his non-teammates, but for me, he's going to run me up high into the marbles and put me into the wall to win a race. So I don't think Bubba will really make it. I was just like alluding to that, but it seems like those two are kind of okay with it. But I think Bubba was probably giggling watching the replay of Chastain send his team owner like that, kind of like that's what you kind of get for ruining both our days that day to let a Chevrolet win, only to almost admit that you would have let another Chevrolet win or get into the playoffs. So there's a lot of confusion going on here in this sport. So yeah, that's kind of just what I say. It's just interesting. I know there's been a lot of penalties lately, at least from what I can recall, of just the whole 100% rule and just drivers doing stuff silly. Obviously, Joe, you alluded to Martinsville last year, and then was it a couple of years ago? Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it was the Roval. Was it Cole Custer tried to get Briscoe? I didn't really research this before the show, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But wasn't it something where Cole Custer Briscoe got penalized at the Roval? Am I making that up or no?
Yeah, for race manipulation. It was 100 points.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot of points. And now Cole Custer, that would take like 10 races to get there. But that is crazy.
He had a decent run today. You
did. It was a top 25. That's actually a good effort for that organization. It really is. So, I mean, shout out to him. But yeah, that's just how I feel about Hamlin. It's like a weird he seemed distraught. I don't hear me out though. I mean, I said that already, but like it seemed like when Hamlin got out of the car, I've never seen him so confused his entire life. It was just like, yeah, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if I was battling for 10th or 30th. Like, what the heck? Were they not talking to him? I know he said, are they not talking to Ty at New Hampshire a couple weeks prior, but now are they not talking to Denny during the race? Because why didn't he know? It seemed a little weird to me, that's all. But I guess maybe they didn't tell him knowing that he probably would have let Ross stay in front of him, and they don't want to deal with a possible penalty that would have let Ross and Joey get in. So, yeah, I'm interested to hear what Tanner has to say about this.
Oh, I'm glad you asked, Matthew. I have plenty to say about this. Joe, thank you for writing this question. Denny Hamlin, you are the source of your own problems. You wouldn't even be caught up in this situation if you didn't wreck your driver last week. You would have eliminated both of them. Both drivers. Both guys that you absolutely cannot stand, especially in a round of 8 format. You do this every year, man. You do this every year, where you talk yourself up all season long until about race 30, and then you start just crumbling at the slightest bit of any adversity. It is truly astounding how you manage to keep doing this, my dude. I'm going to chill down. I'm going to chill out a little bit, but think about it, y'all. Bubba Wallace advances last week. Joey Logano is like, thanks, Denny, because obviously Chase Elliott advancing was way more preferable for those above the cut line, as he was also above the cut line. So not only have you allowed Joey Logano, your worst enemy, into the round of 8, the defending series champion, a 3-time champion of the sport, all in this format, you let him in because you put on the damn Green Goblin mask again. Like, oh my God, Denny Hamlin, you're like Norman Osborn, my man. You're putting on the Green Goblin mask at the worst possible times. And inevitably, I feel like this is going to be your downfall, is being too greedy at Kansas. No one's saying that you can't race for a win. In fact, I think we all want that. But Chris Buescher and Kyle Larson managed to not completely wreck themselves in the exact same corner 3 years ago, but 3 races ago at Kansas. And you could manage to do that. I don't want to hear about your power steering. You were able to dive 2 lanes down in the corner and door slam Chase Elliott. So that clearly just doesn't hold a whole lot of weight to me. All that said, to get back to the question at hand, the 100% rule I think is inherently flawed, because if you're someone in Hamlin's situation, because we're going to get back to the reality of this, the best interest of your team is for you to not pass that car, because you do not want to face the 22 in the round of 8. But it goes against the idea that, like, if you have a faster car, you should be doing everything you can in your power to get ahead of the next car. But again, what happens when that speed doesn't equal help? It's just a really complicated situation. Obviously, you don't want stuff like last year at Martinsville, where you have an entire blockade of Chevys from all different teams protecting William Byron like he's, a basket and William Byron's baby Moses floating down the river. Like, you can't have that kind of stuff happening, because clearly that's not in the best interest of the sport. It's not in the best interest of competition. But you also can't really allow for things like Denny Hamlin, poking around with 10-lap fresher tires with Ross Chastain, because he doesn't want somebody else advancing into the playoffs. So the 100% rule, I feel like, just isn't, crafted very well. So, you get into this kind of situation where Denny is like, man, I didn't really want to pass him, but, obviously you have last week where he's talking about, I have to go 100%, so I had to wreck my driver to go try to win this race. It's just really interesting that these drivers are always willing to go 100% when it's convenient for them, or at least they think it is. All that to say, I don't think Denny had I think Denny had a right to be upset in the situation. I think it would have been prudent for him to know what the situation was points-wise, and for his team to really drop the ball there is kind of inexcusable. That said, I think the 100% rule is completely overrated and needs to be rewritten in some way. But it's really just a way for NASCAR to completely absolve themselves of, making ball and strike calls like last year at Martinsville, where there was clear race manipulation happening. They didn't want to call it that. So, obviously these are just more hijinks created by NASCAR's gimmicky playoff system, and this is just another piece of runoff from that. So, I'm going to close with saying that, Denny Hamlin, you did this to yourself, and if Joey Logano beat you at Phoenix, you've got no one else to look at but the mirror, buddy.
For Denny Hamlin, it's just one of those deals where it's like, how interesting, of all the drivers that could have slipped by into the round of 8. And I feel like I'm just surprised, because I thought more drivers would be attuned of, hey, under this situation, this driver is going to advance the round of 8. I don't want that, or the round of 12. I feel like the best example of somebody doing that was, unfortunately, Joey Logano. He didn't want Matt Kenseth to get that win advance next round at Kansas. Didn't give Kenseth the space, spun him around. Of course, we all know what happened at Martinsville a couple races later. But I'm just surprised at Denny Hamlin's comments. I was just like, to me, it doesn't make sense. The 100% rule, that's like when F1 said, there's no team orders. Well, good luck trying to enforce that. This is so hard to enforce. Only takes a code word or something like Alonso's faster you, or as some of us saw it during that second stage, Shane Van Gisbergen getting passed by Chastain, he's just taking care of his tires. Tanner.
Yeah, just wanted to add one thing here. We wouldn't have this 100% conversation if we just had a full season 36 race points format. Denny Hamlin would have just passed Ross Chastain and not thought a lick about it.